Hey guys, tonight we're exploring a story that everyone in history should know. The story is the great powers that repeatedly failed against. Iran, the history of Iran. You get comfortable, take a moment, like the video, and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The great powers that repeatedly failed against Iran. The history of Iran. For thousands of years, Iran has stood at the center of history. Known in ancient times as Persia, this land became one of the most influential civilizations the world has ever seen. Empires rose and fell around it. Kings fought for control over it, and powerful nations from the west and east repeatedly tried to conquer it. Yet again and again, Iran survived, adapted, and returned as a major force. The story of Iran is not only a story of wars, it is a story of geography, culture, identity, diplomacy, and the ability of a civilization to continue through centuries of change. Many of the greatest powers in human history entered Iranian lands believing victory would be simple. But the mountains, deserts, political traditions, and deep cultural unity of Iran often turned those ambitions into long struggles. The land of Iran sits between major regions of the ancient world. To the west was Mesopotamia, the birthplace of some of humanity's earliest cities. To the north were the steppes of Central Asia. To the east stretched the routes toward India and beyond. Whoever controlled Iran had influence over trade routes, military movements, and the connection between civilizations. Long before modern borders existed, Iranian peoples created societies that shaped world history. Ancient Iranian tribes settled across the plateau, developing their own languages, traditions, and political structures. Over time, one group known as the Persians rose to extraordinary power. The first great Persian Empire was created by Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BCE. Unlike many conquerors of his era, Cyrus built his empire through a combination of military strength and political intelligence. He conquered the Median Empire, expanded into Anatolia, and captured Babylon. But his success was not based only on destruction. He allowed many conquered peoples to preserve their customs and religions. This approach created an empire that was larger and more stable than many earlier kingdoms. The Persian Empire became a model of imperial administration, with roads, communication systems, and organized government. The rise of Persia immediately challenged the existing powers of the ancient world, especially the Greek city-states. To many Greeks, Persia represented the greatest empire they had ever encountered. The Persian Wars became one of the most famous conflicts in ancient history. The Persian kings and Shu, including Darius the Great and Xerxes, attempted to expand Persian influence into Greece. At first, Persia appeared unstoppable. It controlled vast territories, possessed enormous wealth, and had a powerful army. But Greece was a difficult target. The geography of mountains and seas limited Persian advantages. The famous battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea showed that even the largest empire could face unexpected resistance. Although Persia did not conquer Greece, the conflict did not mean Persia was weak. The empire continued for many more years and remained one of the most powerful states in the world. The next major challenge came from Macedonia. A young king named Alexander began a campaign that would change world history. His army moved rapidly through Asia Minor, Syria, Egypt, and finally into the heart of the Persian Empire. The Persian king Darius III faced Alexander in several major battles. Despite having a larger empire and resources, Persia suffered defeats. In 330 BCE, Alexander entered Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. The fall of the Achaemenid Empire was one of the greatest turning points in history. But Alexander's victory did not erase Persian civilization. Instead, Persian culture influenced the new rulers. Greek and Persian traditions mixed, creating a new era. After Alexander's death, his empire broke apart. In Iran, local powers eventually regained control. The Parthian Empire emerged and became one of Rome's greatest rivals. For centuries, Rome and Persia competed for influence across the Middle East. Many Roman emperors dreamed of defeating Persia completely, but again and again they faced the same reality. Iran was not an easy land to conquer. The Romans were among the most powerful military forces in history. They controlled huge territories across Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. Yet their eastern campaigns often became difficult and costly. The Parthians used mobility, cavalry tactics, and knowledge of the land to challenge Rome. The Battle of Carrhae in 53 BCE became one of Rome's most humiliating defeats when the Parthians destroyed a Roman army led by Crassus. This defeat shocked the Roman world. It proved that Persia was not simply another kingdom that Rome could easily absorb. Later, the Sasanian Empire replaced the Parthians and created an even stronger Persian state. The Sasanians considered themselves heirs of the ancient Persian kings and rebuilt a powerful, centralized empire. The conflict between Rome and Sasanian Persia lasted for centuries. Both sides won victories and suffered defeats. Neither could permanently destroy the other. The struggle between these two civilizations shaped the history of the world. Their wars influenced trade routes, religion, politics, and culture across Asia and Europe. One reason foreign powers repeatedly struggled against Iran was the nature of Iranian geography. The Iranian plateau contains mountains, deserts, and difficult terrain. Invading armies often discovered that defeating an army was easier than controlling the land. Another reason was the strength of Iranian identity. Even when foreign dynasties ruled Iran, Persian language and culture often survived. Conquerors frequently adopted Iranian administrative methods instead of completely replacing them. This pattern appeared many times throughout history. The Arabs who conquered Persia in the 7th century changed the political and religious landscape of Iran. The Sasanian Empire collapsed after defeats, but Persian culture did not disappear. Over time, Persian language, literature, and traditions returned strongly. Iran became one of the great centers of Islamic civilization. Persian scholars, poets, scientists, and administrators influenced the wider world. The story of Iran shows a unique historical pattern. Empires could defeat Iranian rulers, but they often struggled to erase Iran itself. This is why Iran has repeatedly surprised powerful enemies. Its strength was not only military, it came from civilization, adaptation, and historical continuity. The history of Iran is therefore not simply a list of invasions and battles. It is the story of a civilization that repeatedly faced the strongest powers of its time and continued to exist. The fall of one Persian dynasty did not mean the end of Iran. Throughout history, many conquerors entered Iranian lands with the belief that they had destroyed the old order forever. But again and again, Iran transformed itself and created new political identities. After the Arab conquest in the 7th century, many observers might have expected Persian culture to disappear. The Sasanian Empire had fallen, its kings were gone, and a new religious and political system had arrived. Yet the story developed differently. The Persian people adapted to the new era. Instead of losing their identity, they became one of the most important contributors to Islamic civilization. Persian became a major language of literature, administration, and scholarship. The influence of Persian thinkers spread far beyond Iran. Centuries later, new Iranian dynasties emerged. The revival of Persian political power showed that conquest was not the same as complete control. One of the most important examples was the rise of the Samanid Empire. The Samanids promoted Persian culture and helped restore Persian language and traditions after centuries of foreign rule. This became a repeating theme in Iranian history. Foreign powers could capture cities, defeat armies, and replace rulers, but the cultural foundation of Iran remained strong. The next major challenge came from the steppe. Central Asian nomadic powers had often influenced Iranian history. Their armies were highly mobile, skilled on horseback, and capable of rapid expansion. The arrival of the Mongols in the 13th century was one of the most devastating events Iran ever experienced. The Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan expanded across Asia with incredible speed. The Mongols destroyed many cities and defeated powerful kingdoms. Their military organization was unlike anything many civilizations had faced before. Iran became one of the major targets of Mongol expansion. The Mongol invasion caused enormous destruction. Cities were attacked, populations suffered, and centuries of development were interrupted. The old political structure collapsed. Yet even this massive invasion did not erase Iran. Over time, the Mongols themselves became influenced by Persian civilization. The rulers of the Ilkhanate adopted Persian administrative practices, supported scholars, and became connected to Iranian culture. The conquerors who arrived as outsiders gradually became part of the civilization they had defeated. This pattern shocked many historians. In many regions, conquerors replaced local cultures completely. In Iran, conquerors often became Persianized. Another powerful force that challenged Iran came from Central Asia again: Timur. Timur built a vast empire through military campaigns across Asia. His armies were famous for their strength and discipline. Iran became one of his targets. Timur's campaigns brought destruction, but after his death, his successors continued ruling through Persian cultural traditions. The Timurid era became a period of artistic and intellectual achievement, especially in architecture, science, and literature. Iran's ability to recover was not accidental. The country's educated elites, urban centers, and cultural institutions helped preserve continuity. The 16th century brought another major transformation, the rise of the Safavid dynasty. The Safavids created a powerful Iranian state and made Shia Islam the official religion. This decision shaped Iranian identity for centuries. The Safavid Empire became a major rival of the Ottoman Empire, one of the greatest powers of its time. The Ottomans controlled vast territories across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. They had a powerful military system and enormous resources. Many believed the Ottomans would dominate Iran, but the geography and political structure of Iran created major obstacles. The rivalry between the Safavids and Ottomans lasted for generations. Neither side was able to completely eliminate the other. The Ottoman-Safavid conflict was not only a military struggle, it was also a competition between two different political and cultural visions. Iran remained independent, preserving its own identity. The Safavid period also showed another important feature of Iranian history: the connection between state power and culture. Cities such as Isfahan became symbols of Iranian civilization. Architecture, art, trade, and scholarship flourished. However, new challenges appeared. In the 18th century, Iran faced internal struggles and foreign pressures. The rise of European powers changed the global balance. Nations such as Britain, Russia, and France began competing for influence in Asia. Iran was no longer facing only neighboring empires. It was entering an age where global powers wanted strategic control. Russia expanded southward toward the Caucasus. Britain sought influence because of its interests in India. Iran became a key location in the competition between these empires. The conflicts with Russia were especially significant. The Russian Empire was expanding rapidly and had a modernizing military. Iran fought several wars with Russia during the 19th century. These conflicts resulted in territorial losses, especially in the Caucasus. Although Iran lost land, Russia never fully conquered Iran itself. This again revealed a historical pattern. A powerful empire could defeat Iran in certain battles, but controlling the entire country was a much greater challenge. Iran's mountains, distances, and political complexity made complete domination extremely difficult. The 19th century became an era of pressure and transformation. Iran faced military challenges, economic competition, and political interference from foreign powers. Yet Iranian identity remained alive. The country entered the modern world, carrying thousands of years of history behind it. The 19th century was a difficult period for Iran. Unlike the earlier centuries, when Iran often competed with neighboring empires on equal terms, the modern era introduced a new challenge. European powers had developed industrial economies, advanced weapons, and global ambitions. Iran found itself between two expanding forces, the Russian Empire to the north and the British Empire to the east and south. Russia wanted influence over the Caucasus and Central Asia. Britain was focused on protecting its interests in India, which was considered one of the most valuable parts of its empire. Iran became a strategic land between these competing powers. The rulers of the Qajar dynasty faced enormous pressure. They tried to maintain independence while dealing with stronger foreign states. The wars with Russia showed the military gap between Iran and industrialized European powers. Iran fought bravely, but the Russian army had advantages in organization and technology. The treaties that followed forced Iran to give up territories in the Caucasus. These losses were painful and became an important part of Iranian historical memory. But Russia's victories did not lead to the complete collapse of Iran. The reason was simple. Iran was not just a territory, it was a civilization with deep roots. Foreign armies could pressure the government, but controlling Iranian society was much more difficult. At the same time, Britain increased its influence in Iran. British interests were connected to trade routes, energy resources, and the security of India. Iran became a place where global politics played out. Many Iranians viewed foreign interference as a threat to sovereignty. This created growing movements demanding reform and independence. One of the most important events was the Constitutional Revolution of 1905 to 1911. This movement attempted to limit absolute royal power and create a modern political system with a parliament. It was one of the earliest constitutional movements in the Middle East. The revolution showed that Iranian society was changing. Merchants, intellectuals, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens all participated in demanding political reform. However, foreign influence continued. Russia and Britain competed for control, and in 1907 they reached an agreement dividing Iran into spheres of influence. Many Iranians saw this as a violation of their independence. The 20th century brought even greater challenges. During World War I, Iran declared neutrality, but foreign armies entered Iranian territory. British, Russian, and Ottoman forces operated in different parts of the country. Iran became a battlefield despite not being a main participant. The war caused severe hardship. Food shortages, economic problems, and instability affected the population. After the war, Iran faced uncertainty about its future. A new era began with the rise of Reza Shah Pahlavi. He established the Pahlavi dynasty and began a program of modernization. Reza Shah wanted to strengthen the Iranian state, reduce foreign influence, and build a modern national identity. He created a stronger central government, expanded infrastructure, and reorganized institutions. His goal was to make Iran strong enough that foreign powers could no longer easily interfere. But Iran's strategic importance continued to attract attention. During World War II, Britain and the Soviet Union invaded Iran in 1941. They feared that Iran's government might cooperate with Germany and wanted to secure supply routes. The invasion forced Reza Shah to leave power. His son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, became the new ruler. The Allied occupation demonstrated a recurring pattern in Iranian history. Great powers could enter Iran, influence its politics, and pressure its rulers, but they often struggled to fully control the country. After World War II, the world entered the Cold War. Iran became important because of its location and its oil resources. The discovery and development of oil transformed Iran's importance. Oil became one of the most valuable resources in the modern world. Foreign companies became deeply involved in Iran's economy, especially through the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Many Iranians believed their natural resources were benefiting foreign interests more than the Iranian people. This created a powerful nationalist movement. A major figure in this movement was Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh became prime minister and supported the nationalization of Iran's oil industry. His goal was to ensure that Iran controlled its own resources. This decision created a major international crisis. Britain strongly opposed the move because of its economic interests. The United States also became involved during the Cold War. In 1953, a coup removed Mossadegh from power. The event became one of the most controversial moments in modern Iranian history and deeply influenced Iranian views about foreign intervention. Many Iranians saw it as another example of powerful countries attempting to control Iran's destiny. The following decades were shaped by modernization, political conflict, and growing tensions between the government and society. Iran continued changing, but the historical theme remained familiar. Outside powers repeatedly attempted to shape Iran according to their own interests. Yet Iran's internal identity and historical continuity continued to influence events. The country that had survived ancient invasions, Roman armies, Mongol conquests, and imperial rivalries entered the modern age still carrying the same challenge. Powerful enemies could pressure Iran, but completely transforming or controlling Iran was far more difficult. The second half of the 20th century became one of the most important periods in Iran's long history. After centuries of invasions, rival empires, and foreign pressure, Iran entered a new age where the struggle was no longer only about armies and territory. It became a struggle over independence, resources, ideology, and national identity. After the 1953 political crisis, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi strengthened his position as the ruler of Iran. With support from Western countries, especially the United States, his government began major modernization programs. Iran changed rapidly. Cities expanded, industries developed, education increased, and the country attempted to become a modern regional power. The government launched the White Revolution, a series of reforms that included land redistribution, modernization projects, and social changes. Supporters viewed these reforms as necessary steps toward development. Critics argued that modernization was happening too quickly and the political power remained concentrated. Beneath the surface, tensions were growing. Many Iranians were concerned about foreign influence, economic inequality, and the relationship between the state and society. Iran's relationship with the United States became especially important during the Cold War. The United States saw Iran as a key ally in the Middle East. Iran's location near the Soviet Union and its energy resources made it strategically valuable. But inside Iran, many people remembered earlier foreign interventions. The memory of the Russian and British influence of the 19th and early 20th centuries and the events surrounding 1953 remained powerful. This historical memory shaped public attitudes. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution transformed the country. The monarchy ended, and a new political system was established. The revolution surprised many outside observers. A country that had been a close partner of the West suddenly became one of its strongest critics. The new Islamic Republic changed Iran's foreign policy dramatically. The relationship between Iran and the United States deteriorated rapidly. One of the most significant events was the Iran hostage crisis, when American diplomats were held in Tehran for more than a year. This event became a defining moment in relations between the two countries. The United States responded with diplomatic pressure and economic measures. The crisis showed that Iran was willing to challenge a global superpower. However, the most difficult test came soon after. In 1980, Iraq invaded Iran. The Iraqi government under Saddam Hussein believed Iran was weakened after the revolution and could be defeated quickly. Many outside powers expected Iran to collapse. The war began with Iraq launching attacks across the border. At first, Iraq captured some territory, but Iran did not fall. The invasion united many Iranians around national defense. The Iran-Iraq War became one of the longest conventional wars of the 20th century. For 8 years, Iran fought a powerful enemy supported by various international actors. Iraq received significant assistance from several countries because many feared the spread of Iran's revolutionary influence. Despite enormous losses, Iran survived. The war became a central part of modern Iranian identity. It created a strong belief that Iran had once again faced powerful enemies and endured. The conflict also revealed a major feature of Iranian strategy: endurance. Iran often relied not only on military strength, but on geography, population, organization, and the ability to continue under pressure. The country's large size and difficult terrain made total conquest extremely challenging. After the war ended in 1988, Iran entered a period of reconstruction. The country rebuilt damaged cities and industries. But international tensions continued. The next major confrontation involved Iran's nuclear program. For many years, Western countries expressed concerns about Iran's nuclear activities. Iran argued that its program was for peaceful purposes, while critics feared possible military intentions. The issue became one of the major international disputes of the 21st century. The United States and its allies used sanctions and diplomatic pressure against Iran. These measures affected Iran's economy, but they did not force the collapse of the government. Again, the historical pattern appeared. Pressure created difficulties, but Iran adapted. The country developed domestic industries, expanded regional relationships, and continued its political course. Iran's modern history shows a repeated cycle. A powerful foreign force attempts to influence or weaken Iran. Iran faces serious challenges, but instead of disappearing, it changes, adapts, and continues. This pattern existed from ancient Persia to the modern era. The Greeks tried to defeat Persia. Rome tried to overcome Persian power. The Arabs ended the Sasanian Empire but could not erase Persian identity. The Mongols destroyed cities but became influenced by Persian civilization. The Ottomans fought Iran for centuries but never absorbed it. Russia and Britain competed for control but never fully dominated the country. Modern powers pressured Iran but faced the same reality. Iran is more than a government or a military force. It is a civilization with thousands of years of historical memory. The history of Iran in the modern era cannot be understood only through wars and political conflicts. It is also a story of survival through knowledge, culture, geography, and national identity. For thousands of years, Iran's greatest strength was not always the size of its armies. Many powerful enemies had larger resources and stronger weapons. Yet Iran repeatedly used different advantages: difficult geography, experienced leadership, cultural unity, and the ability to adapt. The Iranian plateau itself shaped the destiny of the country. Unlike flat regions where invading armies could easily move and establish control, Iran contained vast mountains, deserts, and separated regions. The Zagros Mountains and other natural barriers created defensive challenges for any foreign force. An invading army might win a major battle, but maintaining control over the entire land was a completely different task. This was one reason many conquerors changed after entering Iran. They came as foreign rulers, but over time they often adopted Persian traditions, administration, and culture. This happened repeatedly. The Greeks under Alexander brought Hellenistic influence, but Persian traditions survived. The Arabs introduced a new political and religious order, but Persian scholars and administrators became central figures in the new civilization. The Mongols arrived as destroyers, but later Mongol rulers in Iran governed through Persian institutions. The pattern was remarkable. Iran often absorbed outside influences while preserving its own identity. This ability to combine change with continuity became one of the defining features of Iranian history. The 20th and 21st centuries continued this pattern. After the Iran-Iraq War, Iran faced enormous economic and political challenges. Many expected the country to weaken permanently, but Iran rebuilt. The post-war period saw efforts to restore infrastructure, strengthen domestic production, and expand education. Iran invested heavily in universities and scientific development. The country became a center for research in several fields, including medicine, engineering, and technology. Supporters of Iran's system viewed this as proof of independence. Critics argued that political restrictions affected many areas of society. But regardless of political debates, the broader historical theme remained. Iran continued functioning despite pressure. One of the biggest challenges in modern history has been relations with the United States. Since 1979, the relationship between the two countries has remained deeply hostile. The United States has used sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and strategic competition. Iran has responded by attempting to maintain independence and increase its influence. This rivalry became one of the most important geopolitical conflicts of the modern Middle East. But Iran's relationships with other powers also changed over time. Iran developed closer ties with some countries while competing with others. Its location made it important in regional politics. The country sits near the Persian Gulf, one of the world's most important energy regions. Control and influence in this area have global consequences. Throughout history, outside powers have wanted influence over Iran because of its geography. Ancient empires wanted control of trade routes. Medieval powers wanted strategic access. Modern states became interested in oil and regional influence, yet the same geography that made Iran valuable also made it difficult to dominate. The Persian Gulf became another major part of Iran's historical story. For centuries, trade connected Iran with India, Arabia, Central Asia, and Europe. Iranian merchants played important roles in regional commerce. Cities developed as centers of exchange, learning, and culture. The image of Iran only as a battlefield is incomplete. Iran was also a place of poetry, philosophy, science, architecture, and art. Figures such as Rumi, Omar Khayyam, and many other scholars influenced the world far beyond Iran. Their works became part of global heritage. This cultural influence helped preserve Iran's identity even during periods of foreign rule. A civilization survives not only through armies but through memory. Iranian literature, language, traditions, and historical awareness connected generations together. This explains why so many foreign powers faced unexpected difficulties. They often measured Iran only by its current political situation. But Iran was shaped by thousands of years of experience. The people living there carried memories of ancient empires, invasions, victories, and losses. National identity was built through centuries. The story of Iran also challenges a simple idea about power. Military strength alone does not guarantee permanent victory. Many of history's strongest empires eventually disappeared. The Roman Empire fell. The Mongol Empire divided. European colonial empires declined. But Iran continued. Its borders changed. Its governments changed. Its religions and political systems evolved. Yet the civilization remained. This is the central theme of Iran's history. A country repeatedly confronted by great powers, repeatedly tested by invasion and pressure, but repeatedly returning as a significant force. The story of Iran is ultimately the story of a civilization that refused to disappear. Across thousands of years, Iran faced some of the strongest powers humanity has ever known. Some enemies arrived with larger armies, greater wealth, and more advanced weapons. Yet history shows that defeating Iran temporarily was often much easier than controlling Iran permanently. From the ancient world to the modern era, one pattern appeared again and again. Foreign powers underestimated the depth of Iranian civilization. They saw rulers and armies, but they did not always understand the society behind them. The Persian identity was not based only on political borders. It existed through language, literature, traditions, family histories, and shared memories. This helped Iran survive even when governments changed. One of the most important examples of cultural survival was the Persian language. After the Arab conquest, Arabic became the language of religion and scholarship in many parts of the Islamic world. However, Persian returned as a major literary language. The revival of Persian literature became a powerful symbol of cultural continuity. Poets, historians, and scholars preserved stories of Iran's past and connected them to new generations. The great epic Shahnameh became one of the most important works in Persian culture. It told stories of ancient kings, heroes, battles, and legends. For many Iranians, it represented the memory of a civilization that existed before many later empires. This cultural foundation helped Iran maintain a unique identity. Even when foreign rulers governed the land, they often had to respect Iranian traditions to maintain stability. The Mongols learned this lesson. The Arabs learned this lesson. The Turks who ruled parts of Iran learned this lesson. The relationship between conqueror and conquered in Iran was different from many other regions. The conqueror did not always erase the old civilization. Often, the old civilization transformed the conqueror. This was one of Iran's greatest historical strengths. In the modern age, the same idea appeared in different forms. Powerful countries tried to influence Iran through politics, economics, and military pressure. But Iran's internal structure made complete control difficult. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union considered Iran strategically important. Its location near the Soviet border, its access to energy resources, and its position between major regions made it extremely valuable. Yet Iran remained a complicated place for foreign powers. Any outside power trying to influence Iran had to deal with strong national feelings and a society with a long historical memory. The events of the late 20th century proved this. The 1979 revolution changed Iran's relationship with the world. Many countries that had expected Iran to remain within their influence were surprised by the speed and scale of the transformation. The revolution showed that internal forces could overcome outside expectations. Afterward, Iran faced isolation, sanctions, and diplomatic conflicts. The Iran-Iraq War became a defining moment. Iraq, supported by several foreign governments, attempted to defeat Iran. Many believed the new Iranian government was too unstable to survive a major war. But the opposite happened. The war strengthened the importance of national defense. Millions of Iranians participated in supporting the war effort. The conflict created a powerful sense of resistance. For Iran, the war was remembered not only as a military conflict, but as a national struggle for survival. After the war, Iran continued to face challenges. Economic restrictions affected development. Political disputes continued. Relations with many countries remained tense. But Iran adapted. This ability to adjust became one of the most important themes in its history. A civilization survives by changing when necessary. Ancient Persia changed from empire to kingdom. Persian culture adapted after foreign conquest. Iran transformed during the Islamic era. The country modernized in the 20th century. Each period brought new challenges, but Iran continued. The idea of Iranian endurance is not only about resistance against enemies, it is also about rebuilding after disasters. Throughout history, Iranian cities were destroyed and rebuilt. Dynasties collapsed and new ones emerged. Trade routes changed. Religions and political systems evolved. But cultural life continued. This continuity separates Iran from many ancient civilizations that disappeared completely. The Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and Chinese all created great civilizations, but each experienced different forms of transformation. Iran's civilization maintained a remarkable connection between ancient and modern times. Modern Iran is not the same as ancient Persia. The world has changed, politics has changed, society has changed, but many historical influences remain visible. The Persian language continues. Cultural traditions continue. Historical memory continues. The past still influences the present. The repeated failures of great powers against Iran were not always simple military defeats. Sometimes the failure was strategic. A foreign power might achieve a short-term goal but fail to create lasting control. This happened many times. The Greeks defeated the Persians but later absorbed Persian influences. The Arabs conquered the Sasanian state, but Persian culture became central to Islamic civilization. The Mongols destroyed cities, but eventually ruled through Persian systems. The Russians and British gained influence, but never turned Iran into a permanent colony. Modern powers pressured Iran, but faced the challenge of dealing with a deeply rooted civilization. The lesson of history is clear. Iran's strength has always come from more than its rulers. It comes from the civilization itself. The history of Iran demonstrates that civilizations are not measured only by the victories they achieve, but also by the crises they survive. Many nations have experienced moments of greatness, but fewer have maintained a continuous identity through thousands of years of invasion, political change, and foreign pressure. Iran is one of those civilizations. The ancient Persian empires created traditions of administration, diplomacy, and governance that influenced later societies. The idea of organizing a vast empire with different peoples, languages, and religions was one of Persia's greatest achievements. The Cyrus the Great period became especially important because of the way the empire managed diversity. Instead of destroying every local tradition, Persian rulers often allowed different communities to continue their customs while remaining connected to the imperial system. This approach helped create stability across a huge territory. The legacy of this system continued even after the Achaemenid Empire ended. Later, Iranian states continued developing ideas of administration and diplomacy. Persia became known not only for military power but also for political skill. Diplomacy was often as important as warfare. Iranian rulers understood that survival required more than defeating enemies on the battlefield. They had to negotiate, form alliances, and balance competing powers. This became especially important during conflicts with Rome and later with the Ottoman Empire. The rivalry between Iran and Rome lasted for centuries. Rome was one of the greatest military machines in history. Its armies conquered large parts of Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean world. Yet the eastern frontier remained a major challenge. Persia was the one great power that Rome could not permanently defeat. The reason was not that Rome was weak. Rome was extremely powerful. But Iran had its own strengths. The Parthians and Sasanians understood their environment. They used cavalry, strategic positions, and long-distance planning. The wars between Rome and Persia showed that two great civilizations could compete without one completely destroying the other. This balance lasted for centuries. Later, another major rival appeared, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans built one of the largest empires in history. They controlled important regions across 3 continents. Their military organization was highly advanced. Yet the Ottomans repeatedly faced difficulties against Iran. The Safavid state created a strong Iranian identity and challenged Ottoman expansion. The rivalry between the two powers shaped the politics of the Middle East. Neither side achieved total victory. This was another example of a great power discovering that Iran was not an easy target. The geography of Iran remained a major factor. The Iranian plateau is surrounded by natural barriers. Invaders had to cross difficult landscapes. Supply lines became longer. Military victories did not automatically create political control. The same problem appeared many centuries later when European powers expanded into Asia. Russia was able to defeat Iran in several wars and gain territory. Britain gained influence, but neither created a permanent colonial system in Iran. Iran remained formally independent. This was unusual. Many regions during the colonial era lost direct control of their governments. Iran faced enormous pressure but avoided becoming a full colony. Its independence became a central part of national identity. During the 20th century, nationalism became stronger. Many Iranians believed that protecting independence was essential after centuries of foreign interference. This feeling influenced politics, revolutions, and social movements. The desire for sovereignty became one of the strongest themes of modern Iranian history. The discovery of oil increased Iran's importance even further. Oil transformed international politics. Countries around the world wanted access to energy resources. Iran's position became even more valuable. But oil also created new conflicts. Foreign companies and governments became deeply involved in Iranian affairs. Many Iranians questioned whether their own resources were truly under their control. This tension contributed to major political changes. The 20th century showed that the struggle over Iran was no longer only about territory. It It was about influence. Who would shape Iran's future? Foreign powers wanted strategic advantage. Iranian society wanted independence. These competing goals created decades of tension. After the 1979 revolution, Iran entered a new stage. The country's relationship with many Western nations changed dramatically. The revolution challenged the existing regional order. Iran became a major independent actor with its own foreign policy goals. This created new conflicts. The United States and its allies attempted to pressure Iran through sanctions and diplomacy. Iran attempted to resist external pressure and maintain strategic independence. The confrontation continues to influence international politics. But the deeper historical pattern remains the same. Iran has repeatedly faced stronger opponents. Sometimes it lost battles, sometimes it lost territory, sometimes it experienced internal crises, but it continued as a civilization. The survival of Iran is not a story of never being defeated. It is a story of recovery. Great powers throughout history often believed that defeating Iran would end Iranian influence. But they discovered something different. Iran could change without disappearing. Its governments could fall. Its borders could shift. Its rulers could be replaced. Yet the civilization remained. The endurance of Iran through history raises an important question. What allowed this civilization to survive when so many powerful enemies attempted to dominate it? The answer lies in a combination of geography, culture, political tradition, and historical memory. Iran was never protected by geography alone. Mountains and deserts helped. But geography became powerful because Iranian societies learned how to use it. For thousands of years, people living on the Iranian plateau developed ways to survive in a challenging environment. They built cities, created irrigation systems, developed trade networks, and established governments capable of managing large territories. Water management was especially important. In many parts of Iran, ancient engineers created underground water channels known as qanats. These systems allowed communities to survive in dry regions. This shows a deeper pattern in Iranian history. Survival depended on creativity and adaptation. The same principle appeared in politics. Iranian rulers often faced enemies from multiple directions. To survive, they needed flexible strategies. Sometimes they fought, sometimes they negotiated, sometimes they absorbed foreign influences and transformed them. This ability to adapt became a major historical advantage. The Persian tradition of administration also played a significant role. When new rulers arrived, they often needed experienced officials who understood how to govern Iranian cities and provinces. Persian administrators became valuable because they had centuries of experience managing complex states. This meant that even after conquest, Iranian political traditions often continued. The conquerors might change, but the system beneath them remained. The influence of Persian culture spread far beyond Iran's borders. Persian became a language of literature and government in many regions of Central and South Asia. The courts of various dynasties valued Persian poetry, art, and scholarship. This cultural influence was one of Iran's strongest forms of power. Military power can disappear, but cultural influence can last for centuries. The works of Persian poets, scientists, and philosophers continued to inspire people long after empires collapsed. The medieval Islamic world was deeply shaped by Persian thinkers. Scholars contributed to medicine, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and literature. This intellectual tradition helped Iran maintain a global importance beyond politics. Another reason Iran survived was the strength of its cities. Throughout history, Iranian cities served as centers of trade, learning, and administration. Places such as Isfahan became symbols of architecture and culture. Urban life allowed knowledge and traditions to continue even during political crises. When one dynasty collapsed, another could rise because institutions and educated communities remained. This was different from civilizations where the destruction of a capital could destroy the entire political system. Iran had multiple centers of influence. The country could recover. The 20th century continued to test Iran. After the revolution of 1979, Iran faced international isolation and a devastating war. The Iran-Iraq War became a defining experience. Iraq expected a quick victory. Instead, the conflict lasted 8 years. The war caused massive human suffering, but it also demonstrated Iran's ability to organize and endure under pressure. The experience shaped national identity for generations. After the war, Iran focused on rebuilding. The country faced economic challenges, but it continued developing industries and institutions. Education expanded. Scientific fields grew. New generations entered universities. Supporters saw this as evidence of national independence. Critics focused on political limitations and social conflicts. Like all nations, Iran's history contains both achievements and struggles. But the long-term pattern remains clear. Foreign pressure alone rarely produced the results outsiders expected. Sanctions, military threats, and diplomatic isolation created difficulties, but they did not erase Iran's political existence. This repeated outcome surprised many observers. Throughout history, powerful states often assumed that pressure would force Iran to surrender. But Iran's historical experience created a different response. Pressure often produced resistance. The memory of previous invasions and foreign interference influenced how many Iranians viewed international relations. Historical experiences became part of national thinking. The ancient wars with Greece, the battles with Rome, the Mongol destruction, the Ottoman rivalry, the Russian expansion, the British influence, the 20th century interventions, all became chapters in a larger story. A story of a civilization repeatedly challenged by great powers. The phrase "failed against Iran" does not always mean every invading force was defeated. History is more complicated. Some enemies won battles, some gained territory, some changed Iranian politics, but many failed in their larger goal, permanently ending Iran's independent identity. That is the central lesson of Iranian history. Conquest is temporary. Civilization is longer. The story of Iran is not only the story of those who attacked it, it is also the story of the people who lived there, rebuilt their cities, protected their traditions, and continued their civilization through changing times. Every empire that entered Iran faced the same challenge. The land was not empty territory waiting to be controlled. It was a place with deep institutions, strong communities, and a powerful sense of identity. This explains why Iran's history is different from many other conquered regions. When an empire collapsed, Iran did not vanish. The names of rulers changed, the political systems changed, the official religions and alliances changed. But the civilization continued. One of the greatest examples of this continuity was the transition from ancient Persia to the Islamic era. The Arab conquest ended the Sasanian Empire, but it did not destroy Persian intellectual and cultural life. Over time, Persians became some of the most important scholars, administrators, and thinkers of the Islamic world. They contributed to the development of science, philosophy, medicine, and literature. This period showed that civilizations are not defined only by political control. A nation's influence can continue even after losing power. The Persian influence on the wider world became enormous. Persian poetry became admired across Asia. Persian architecture influenced cities far beyond Iran. Persian administrative traditions shaped governments in different regions. The cultural power of Iran continued even when foreign dynasties ruled. This was a recurring historical pattern. The conqueror entered Iran, but Iran also entered the conqueror's world. The same happened with the Mongols. The Mongol invasions were among the most destructive events in Iranian history. Cities were damaged, population suffered, economic networks were disrupted. But the Mongols eventually discovered that ruling Iran required understanding Iranian systems. They adopted Persian methods of administration. They supported Persian scholars and artists. This was not unique to the Mongols. Many foreign powers found that Iran was difficult to rule without cooperation with Iranian society. The Safavid period later created a new chapter in Iranian history. The Safavids built a centralized Iranian state and strengthened a distinct national identity. They transformed Iran politically and religiously. The rivalry with the Ottoman Empire became one of the defining struggles of the region. The Ottomans were one of the strongest empires in the world. Their armies were feared across Europe and Asia, but Iran remained a separate power. The Ottoman Empire could fight Iran, it could influence Iran, but it could not absorb Iran completely. This balance lasted for centuries. The arrival of European imperial powers created a different kind of challenge. The industrial age changed warfare. European states had stronger economies and modern military technology. Russia expanded across Eurasia. Britain controlled vast overseas territories. Iran faced pressure from both sides. The 19th century revealed Iran's weaknesses, but also its resilience. Iran lost territories and faced foreign influence. Yet it maintained independence. This was significant because many other regions lost direct control during the Age of Empire. Iran remained on the world map as an independent state. The 20th century brought even greater transformation. Nationalism became stronger. Many Iranians wanted modernization, but also wanted freedom from foreign control. This created tensions between reform, tradition, and outside influence. The oil industry became a symbol of this struggle. Natural resources represented both opportunity and vulnerability. Countries around the world wanted access to Iran's resources. Iranians wanted control over their own wealth. This conflict shaped modern Iranian politics. The 1979 revolution changed Iran's relationship with the world. After the revolution, Iran became a major independent force in regional affairs. Its policies challenged many existing power structures. This led to confrontation with several countries. The United States, which had previously been a close partner, became a major opponent. Sanctions and political pressure followed. But once again, Iran adapted. The country faced economic problems and international isolation, but it continued functioning. This ability to endure became one of the most recognized patterns of modern Iranian history. Iran's survival has often depended on patience. Many powerful states seek quick victories. They expect a short conflict to produce a permanent result. But Iran's history shows that long-term struggles often produce different outcomes. The country has repeatedly survived periods when outside observers expected collapse. This does not mean Iran was always victorious. It faced defeats. It suffered invasions. It lost wars and territories, but it repeatedly rebuilt. The greatest strength of Iran has been continuity. A civilization that remembers its past can use that memory to face the future. The mountains, the language, the literature, and the historical experience all became parts of Iran's identity. The great powers that challenged Iran often focused on immediate goals. They wanted territory, influence, or political advantage, but they frequently underestimated something deeper. They underestimated the power of a civilization that had survived for thousands of years. Throughout history, Iran's relationship with powerful nations has followed a complex pattern. Some enemies achieved victories, some forced political changes, and some influenced Iranian affairs. But again and again, the larger goal of permanently controlling Iran proved extremely difficult. The reason was not one single factor. It was the combination of geography, society, culture, and historical experience. Iran was located at the crossroads of civilizations. This brought both danger and opportunity. Being between East and West meant Iran was often invaded. Armies moved through its lands because of its strategic position. But the same location also made Iran a center of trade, communication, and cultural exchange. Iranian civilization grew because it was connected to the wider world. The Silk Road connected Iran with China, Central Asia, India, and Europe. Merchants carried goods, but they also carried ideas. Religions, languages, technologies, and artistic styles moved through Iran. This created a society capable of absorbing outside influences while maintaining its own identity. The history of Iran shows that influence does not always mean domination. A foreign idea could enter Iran and become part of Iranian civilization. A conqueror could arrive and later become influenced by Iran. This happened many times. One of the strongest examples was Persian culture after the Islamic conquest. Instead of disappearing, Persian culture became one of the foundations of the Islamic Golden Age. Persian scholars helped advance knowledge in many fields. The cities of Iran became centers of learning. This cultural survival was one of the reasons Iran remained important. A civilization survives when its knowledge survives. Books, language, traditions, and education allowed Iran's identity to continue. Even during periods of political weakness, cultural strength remained. The 19th century and 20th century also showed another important lesson. Foreign intervention often created unintended consequences. Powerful states entered Iran believing they could shape its future. But their actions sometimes strengthened Iranian nationalism instead. Many Iranians became more determined to protect independence because of experiences with foreign pressure. The memory of outside interference became part of national consciousness. This influenced political movements and public attitudes. The modern struggle over sovereignty was connected to centuries of earlier history. The desire for independence was not a new idea. It was built through generations. During the Cold War, Iran became one of the most strategically important countries in the world. Its location near the Soviet Union and the Persian Gulf made it valuable. Its energy resources increased its importance. Global powers wanted influence in Iran because control of Iran meant influence over a larger region. But Iran was never simply a piece of territory. It was a society with its own ambitions. This made foreign involvement complicated. The events after 1979 demonstrated this clearly. The revolution changed Iran's internal structure and foreign relations. Many outside powers struggled to understand the new Iran. The country no longer followed the same alliances as before. A new political identity emerged. The following decades were marked by confrontation. The Iran-Iraq War tested Iran severely. The country faced invasion from a neighbor and international isolation. Yet the war ended without Iran losing its independence. The conflict became a symbol of survival. For many Iranians, it represented another moment when the country faced a powerful enemy and endured. After the war, Iran continued navigating a difficult international environment. Economic sanctions created pressure. Diplomatic conflicts continued. Regional competition increased. But Iran remained a significant actor. Its population, geography, resources, and historical identity continued to matter. The story of Iran challenges a common misunderstanding about power. Power is not only about weapons, it is also about social unity, cultural confidence, and the ability to recover. Many empires had stronger armies than their opponents. Yet they disappeared because they lacked the ability to maintain their systems. Iran survived because its civilization was deeper than any single government. The governments of Iran changed many times. The Achaemenids, the Parthians, the Sasanians, the Islamic dynasties, the Safavids, the Qajars, the Pahlavis, the Islamic Republic. Each represented a different era. But across all these periods, a connection remained. The land, language, and cultural memory continued. This is why Iran's history cannot be explained only through rulers. It must be understood through the civilization itself. The greatest powers that challenged Iran often discovered the same reality. Iran could be defeated temporarily. Iran could be pressured. Iran could be changed, but Iran was extremely difficult to erase. The survival of Iran through thousands of years is one of the most remarkable stories in world history. Many civilizations that once dominated the world eventually disappeared completely. Their languages faded, their political systems ended, and their cultural influence became only a memory. Iran followed a different path. Even after losing empires, Iran continued to exist as a civilization. The ancient Persian empires may have fallen, but Persian culture remained powerful. The rulers changed, but the people, language, and traditions continued. This continuity became Iran's greatest historical advantage. One reason for this survival was the importance of education and knowledge. Throughout history, Iranian cities produced scholars, writers, scientists, and thinkers. Knowledge became a form of strength. A nation that preserves its intellectual traditions can rebuild after political disasters. This happened many times in Iranian history. After invasions destroyed cities, new centers of learning appeared. After dynasties collapsed, new rulers depended on experienced administrators. After foreign influence increased, Iranian society adapted and responded. Iran was never frozen in the past. It constantly transformed. This ability to transform is another reason many foreign powers struggled to control it. A country that refuses to change may collapse, but a civilization that changes while preserving its identity can survive. Iran demonstrated this repeatedly. The ancient Persians adopted new technologies and ideas from neighboring civilizations. The Islamic period brought new religious and intellectual developments. The Mongol period brought destruction but also cultural exchange. The modern era brought industrialization, nationalism, and global politics. Each period changed Iran, but none completely replaced it. The relationship between Iran and foreign powers was also shaped by misunderstanding. Many outsiders viewed Iran through the lens of immediate political events. They focused on rulers, armies, and short-term conflicts. But Iran's strength came from deeper foundations. A civilization cannot be understood only by looking at its government. The people, culture, and historical memory matter. The example of the Roman-Persian rivalry shows this clearly. Rome had one of the strongest military systems ever created. Its roads, legions, and organization allowed it to dominate much of the ancient world. But Persia remained its great eastern rival. For centuries, Rome tried to expand further east, yet Persia remained independent. The eastern frontier became a permanent challenge. This was not because Persia always won. It did not. Both sides experienced victories and defeats, but neither could destroy the other. This balance itself was historically significant. The same idea appeared with later empires. The Ottoman Empire was powerful. Russia was powerful. Britain was powerful. The United States became a global superpower. Each interacted with Iran in different ways. Each discovered that Iran had its own ability to resist outside control. Iran's geography continued to play a role. The Iranian plateau created both challenges and opportunities. Mountains protected communities. Distances made occupation difficult. Different regions developed their own strengths. An invading power had to manage not just a battlefield, but an entire civilization. This required more than military victory. It required understanding society. Many powers underestimated this. They believed defeating a ruler meant defeating Iran. History showed otherwise. The fall of one government did not end Iranian identity. The modern era also showed the importance of resources. Oil made Iran strategically important, but natural resources also brought competition. Foreign countries wanted access. Iran wanted control. This conflict became one of the major themes of modern politics. The struggle over resources was connected to a larger question. Who had the right to decide Iran's future? For many Iranians, independence became the central answer. This idea connected ancient and modern history. The ancient Persian kings defended their empire. Later, rulers defended Iranian states. Modern movements defended national sovereignty. The details changed, but the desire for self-determination remained. Iran's history is therefore not only about resisting enemies. It is also about maintaining a sense of identity in a changing world. The greatest powers often measured success by territory gained. But Iran's history suggests another measurement. A civilization succeeds when it continues. Empires can rise and fall. Borders can change. Governments can disappear. But a civilization that preserves its identity can survive centuries of challenges. Iran's story is the story of endurance. The history of Iran shows that the strength of a civilization is not always visible on a battlefield. Sometimes the greatest victories happen through survival, adaptation, and the ability to continue when others expect collapse. Iran's past is filled with moments when powerful enemies believed they had reached the end of Persian influence. Yet each time something remained. The language remained, the culture remained, the people remained. The memory of the past remained. This connection between past and present created one of the strongest historical identities in the world. The ancient Persian Empire introduced ideas of administration that influenced later governments. The ability to manage a large and diverse empire required organization, communication, and political skill. The famous royal road of the Achaemenid period was an example of how Persian rulers connected distant regions. Communication was power. A ruler who could move information quickly could govern more effectively. These ideas continued influencing later Iranian states. The Parthians and Sasanians also developed sophisticated systems of government. They understood that controlling a vast region required cooperation with local communities. Persian rulers often balanced central authority with regional traditions. This flexibility helped Iran survive changing circumstances. When Alexander conquered Persia, many believed Persian civilization had ended. But history proved different. Greek influence entered Iran, but Persian traditions survived. The Hellenistic period became a mixture of cultures. Iran was not erased. It adapted. The same pattern repeated after the Arab conquest. The old empire disappeared, but Persian civilization continued. Persian officials became important in new governments. Persian scholars contributed greatly to science and literature. The new era did not destroy Iran's influence, it transformed it. This ability to transform became one of the most important themes of Iranian history. The Mongol invasion created one of the darkest chapters. The destruction was enormous. Many cities suffered. Many lives were lost. Economic systems were damaged. Yet Iran recovered. The Mongols eventually depended on Persian administrators and adopted many Persian customs. The conquerors had changed Iran, but Iran had also changed them. This is why Iranian history is different from simple stories of conquest. It is a story of interaction. Foreign powers entered Iran, but they rarely remained untouched. Iran's cultural influence continued beyond its borders. Persian became a language of courts and literature across large parts of Asia. Artists and scholars influenced regions far from Iran itself. This cultural reach was a form of power. Not all power comes from armies. Some power comes from ideas. The modern period introduced new forms of competition. European empires expanded across Asia. Technology changed warfare. Industrial economies created new advantages. Iran faced countries with stronger industrial systems. The challenges were serious. Russia took territories. Britain gained influence. Foreign pressure increased. But Iran avoided complete colonization. This was a major historical achievement. Many nations lost their independence during the imperial age. Iran remained a sovereign state. The 20th century brought new political struggles. The desire for modernization existed alongside the desire for independence. Many Iranians wanted development but did not want foreign domination. This tension shaped the country's politics. The oil issue became a symbol of this struggle. Natural resources represented economic power and national pride. The conflict over oil was not only about money, it was about control. Who should benefit from Iran's resources? Who should decide Iran's future? These questions became central. The 1979 revolution marked another major turning point. Iran entered a new political era. Its relationship with many foreign powers changed. The country became more independent in its foreign policy, but also faced new conflicts. Sanctions and pressure followed. The Iran-Iraq War tested the nation. The war caused enormous suffering, but Iran survived. The conflict became part of national memory. It reinforced the belief that Iran had repeatedly faced stronger opponents and endured. In the years after the war, Iran continued dealing with international challenges. The country developed its own industries and expanded education. At the same time, political disagreements continued inside and outside the country. Iran's modern story, like its ancient story, contains both achievements and conflicts, but the larger historical pattern remains. Iran has repeatedly faced powers that wanted to reshape its destiny. Yet those powers often discovered that Iran was not simply a territory to control. It was a civilization with thousands of years of experience. The greatest lesson from Iran's history is not that it was never defeated. The lesson is that defeat did not end it. Iran survived because its identity was deeper than any single empire. The survival of Iran across thousands of years reveals powerful truth about history. Civilizations are not only built by conquest, but also by memory, adaptation, and the ability to rebuild. Iran's history contains moments of victory and defeat, expansion and loss, peace and war. But through every period, a central connection remained between the people and their civilization. This connection allowed Iran to continue when many expected it to disappear. One of the most important parts of Iranian endurance was the preservation of identity. A nation's identity is created through many things: language, traditions, literature, religion, art, and shared historical experiences. Iran preserved these elements through many political changes. When one dynasty replaced another, Iranian society continued. When foreign rulers arrived, Iranian traditions often influenced the new order. This happened because culture existed beyond the power of kings. Kings could lose battles, empires could collapse, but cultural memory could survive. The Persian language became one of the strongest examples of this continuity. Language carried stories from one generation to another. Poetry preserved history. Literature preserved ideas. Through language, Iran maintained a connection between ancient and modern times. This cultural strength helped Iran remain influential even during periods when it was politically weaker. The world often remembers military victories, but cultural influence can last much longer. The Persian tradition of poetry and philosophy influenced societies far beyond Iran's borders. Persian thinkers contributed to global knowledge. Their works traveled across regions and shaped intellectual life. This was another way Iran influenced history, not through armies, but through ideas. The great powers that confronted Iran often focused on immediate strategic goals. They wanted land, resources, or political advantage. But they sometimes underestimated the deeper forces inside Iranian society. A foreign army could capture a city, but rebuilding political control required understanding the people. This was the challenge many powers faced. The experience of Alexander is one example. Alexander defeated the Persian army and captured the empire. But he quickly realized that ruling such a vast region required cooperation with Persian traditions. He adopted parts of Persian administration. His successors also relied on local systems. The conqueror became connected to the civilization he had conquered. the Romans faced a similar challenge. For centuries, Rome attempted to expand eastward. But Persia remained a major obstacle. The Roman Empire was enormous. Yet the Persian frontier remained difficult. Rome could win battles, but it could not permanently absorb Iran. The Ottoman Empire faced the same reality. The Ottomans were powerful enough to dominate many regions, but Iran maintained its own political identity. The rivalry between these two powers continued for centuries, without a final victory. This historical pattern continued into the age of European empires. Russia expanded south. Britain expanded its influence. Both wanted strategic control, but Iran remained independent. The country experienced pressure and interference, but not complete foreign rule. This independence became a major part of Iranian national consciousness. In the 20th century, Iran's position became even more important. The discovery of oil changed global politics. Energy resources became essential to industrial nations. Iran's location and resources attracted international attention, but this also created conflicts. Foreign governments wanted access. Iranian nationalists wanted control. The struggle over resources became a struggle over sovereignty. The events surrounding the nationalization of oil showed how powerful national identity had become. Many Iranians believed that controlling their own resources was necessary for true independence. This idea continued influencing politics for decades. The Revolution of 1979 represented another major transformation. The old political system ended. A new one began. The change surprised many governments around the world. It showed that Iran's internal dynamics could produce unexpected outcomes. The decades after the revolution were filled with challenges. The country faced war, sanctions, and diplomatic conflicts. But once again, Iran adapted. The Iran-Iraq War became one of the clearest examples. A country under pressure organized itself and continued fighting for survival. The conflict demonstrated that national unity and endurance could compensate for many disadvantages. After the war, reconstruction became the priority. Iran rebuilt infrastructure and expanded education. Scientific and technological development became important goals. The country continued changing. This pattern of change is central to Iranian history. Iran survived not by remaining exactly the same. It survived by transforming while preserving its foundations. This is why many great powers failed to achieve their ultimate goals. They expected a temporary victory to create permanent control. But Iran's history showed that temporary defeats were often followed by renewal. The civilization continued. The story continued. Iran's long history demonstrates that the survival of a civilization depends on more than military strength. Armies can protect borders, but culture and identity protect a civilization across centuries. The history of Iran is filled with moments when the country faced powerful opponents. Yet the final outcome was often different from what those opponents expected. The reason was that Iran possessed a deep foundation. The Persian civilization developed systems of government, education, trade, and culture that continued through changing eras. Ancient Persia was not only an empire of conquest, it was also an empire of organization. Managing a vast territory required advanced administration. The Persian rulers created systems that allowed different peoples to remain connected. This experience of governing diversity became one of Iran's historical strengths. Later Iranian states inherited many of these traditions. Even when foreign rulers took control, they often needed Persian knowledge to govern effectively. This is why Iranian history cannot be understood simply as a series of invasions. Each invasion created change, but it also created exchange. The conqueror influenced Iran. Iran influenced the conqueror. This relationship appeared repeatedly. The Arab conquest transformed Iran's religion and political structure, but Persian scholars and administrators became central to the new civilization. The Mongol invasion destroyed cities, but later Mongol rulers adopted Persian culture and administration. The arrival of Turkic dynasties changed leadership, but Persian language and traditions remained powerful. The result was a civilization that constantly renewed itself. The ability to rebuild became especially important after major disasters. Iran experienced devastating wars and invasions, cities were destroyed, political systems collapsed, economic networks were interrupted, but communities rebuilt. New leaders emerged. New cultural achievements appeared. This cycle happened many times. The modern era created different challenges. Industrial powers had new technologies and global networks. Traditional military strength was no longer enough. Iran faced countries with modern armies and industrial economies. The 19th century showed the consequences. Iran lost territories during conflicts with Russia. Foreign influence increased. Economic pressure grew. But Iran remained politically alive. The country was never completely absorbed into another empire. This was significant because the age of imperial expansion destroyed the independence of many states. Iran maintained its existence. The 20th century brought another major challenge: the struggle over modernization and independence. Many Iranians wanted progress. They wanted stronger institutions, education, and economic development. But they also wanted control over their own destiny. The conflict between modernization and foreign influence shaped much of modern Iranian history. The oil crisis became one of the clearest examples. Oil was not just a resource. It became a symbol of national sovereignty. Control over oil meant control over the country's future. This issue connected economics with identity. The events of 1953 had a lasting impact on how many Iranians viewed foreign involvement. The idea that powerful nations could interfere in Iran's internal affairs became part of historical memory. After 1979, Iran entered another new era. The country's foreign relations changed dramatically. The confrontation with the United States became one of the defining international conflicts of the modern Middle East. The United States was one of the most powerful nations in the world. It had enormous economic and military influence. Yet Iran remained a difficult opponent. Sanctions created pressure. Diplomatic isolation created challenges. But Iran continued to exist as an independent actor. This reflected the same historical patterns seen many times before. Pressure alone rarely erased Iranian identity. The country's large population, resources, geography, and history made it resilient. The idea of resilience became central to Iran's modern story. The past influenced the present. Memories of ancient invasions, foreign interventions, and struggles for independence shaped national thinking. For many Iranians, history was not distant. It was part of everyday identity. This connection between past and present helped create social endurance. A civilization that remembers its history can use that history as a source of strength. Iran's story is therefore not simply about battles, it is about survival through time. The Greeks, Romans, Mongols, Ottomans, Russians, British, and modern powers all interacted with Iran. Each left an impact, but none completely erased the civilization. The land continued, the culture continued, the identity continued. And this is the central lesson of Iranian history. Empires rise and fall, but civilizations built on deep foundations can survive the storms of history. The history of Iran is a story of a civilization that repeatedly stood at the crossroads of world events. Because of its location, Iran was often caught between competing powers. But this same position also allowed Iran to become a bridge between different civilizations. Throughout history, Iran connected East and West. Ideas moved through Iranian lands. Merchants traveled across its routes. Scientists and artists exchanged knowledge. Iran was not only a battlefield, it was also a center of creativity and civilization. This is important because many outsiders viewed Iran mainly through the lens of conflict. They saw invasions and wars. But the deeper story was about continuity. A civilization survives when its people continue creating, learning, and preserving their traditions. Iran's cultural achievements were part of its survival. Architecture, poetry, science, and philosophy created a sense of identity that lasted beyond political changes. The great cities of Iran represented this continuity. Cities became places where history was remembered. They carried the influence of different eras. Ancient foundations existed alongside later developments. This mixture of old and new became a defining feature of Iranian civilization. One reason foreign powers struggled in Iran was that they often underestimated local knowledge. A foreign army might understand how to win a battle, but governing Iran required understanding its society. The land contained different regions, communities, and traditions. A successful ruler needed more than military force. They needed political intelligence. Many conquerors discovered this after their victories. They entered Iran as outsiders, but eventually depended on Iranian systems. This happened because Iran had developed deep administrative traditions. Government was not created overnight. It was built through centuries of experience. The ancient Persian state had already created methods for managing large territories. Later rulers continued improving these methods. This historical experience became a form of national strength. The same pattern appeared in international relations. Iran often survived by balancing between stronger powers. When one empire expanded, Iran sometimes worked with another. Diplomacy became a tool of survival. Military strength mattered, but so did negotiation. This was especially important in periods when Iran faced multiple enemies at once. The 19th century showed this clearly. Russia pushed south. Britain expanded its influence. Iran had to protect its independence while dealing with both. The situation was difficult. Iran suffered losses, but it avoided complete foreign domination. This became one of the most important achievements of modern Iranian history. The 20th century brought even greater changes. Nationalism became stronger around the world. People increasingly demanded political independence and control over resources. Iran was part of this global movement. The desire for independence influenced many political movements. The oil industry became central to these debates. The question was not only who controlled oil. The deeper question was who controlled Iran's future. This struggle reflected a much older theme. For centuries, Iran had faced outside powers, attempting to shape its destiny. The modern era continued that struggle in a new form. After the revolution of 1979, Iran entered a new stage. Its political system changed, its alliances changed, its relationship with the global order changed. The country faced new conflicts, but the historical pattern continued. Iran adapted. It faced pressure, but continued. It experienced isolation, but remained influential. The Iran-Iraq War became a powerful example. Many expected Iran to collapse. Instead, the country endured a long and devastating conflict. The war shaped the national memory of modern Iran. It reinforced the belief that survival itself was a victory. After the war, Iran continued rebuilding. The country developed new industries and expanded education. It invested in scientific fields. It attempted to strengthen domestic capabilities. At the same time, political and social debates continued. Modern Iran, like every civilization, contained disagreements and challenges. But those challenges existed within a society with thousands of years of history. This historical depth mattered. A young political system can collapse easily. But a civilization with ancient roots has greater resilience. The story of Iran is therefore not simply about defeating enemies. It is about surviving transformations. Ancient Persia became different Persian states. Persian traditions survived foreign rule. Modern Iran emerged from centuries of change. The civilization continued moving forward. The greatest powers that challenged Iran often focused on short-term victories. But history measures success over longer periods. A power may win a battle, it may capture territory, it may influence a government, but if the civilization remains, the story is not finished. Iran's history shows exactly this. The country changed many times, but it never disappeared. The long journey of Iran through history reveals one of the most important lessons about civilizations. Survival itself can be a form of power. Many empires in history were created through conquest. They expanded quickly, controlled large territories, and appeared unstoppable. But many of them eventually disappeared because they depended mainly on military strength. Iran's story was different. Iran was not only an empire, it was a civilization. Empires can fall, civilizations can continue. The ancient Persian Empire eventually collapsed under the attacks of Alexander. The Parthian Empire ended, the Sasanian Empire fell. Later dynasties also disappeared, but the idea of Iran remained. The Persian language continued. Cultural traditions continued. The connection between generations continued. This created a historical continuity that few civilizations achieved. The importance of memory cannot be underestimated. A society that remembers its past understands itself differently. Iranian historical memory included stories of ancient kings, heroes, victories, invasions, and recovery. These stories influenced how later generations viewed their place in history. The past became a source of identity. This was especially important during periods of foreign pressure. When powerful nations attempted to influence Iran, many Iranians viewed those events through the experiences of earlier centuries. The memories of invasions and foreign involvement shaped attitudes toward independence. This connection between history and politics remained strong. The 20th century was a period when Iran faced some of its most complicated challenges. The world had changed. Industrial nations possessed new technologies. Global competition became more intense. Natural resources became central to international politics. Iran's oil increased its importance, but it also increased outside interest. Foreign powers wanted influence because Iran mattered strategically. Its location connected different regions. Its resources affected global markets. Its politics influenced the wider Middle East. This made Iran one of the most important countries in the region. But importance also brought pressure. The country had to navigate between competing interests. The struggle for independence became a defining theme. The events of the mid-20th century showed how difficult this balance could be. Many Iranians wanted modernization and development, but they also wanted control over their own resources and decisions. This tension shaped the country's future. After 1979, Iran's position in the world changed dramatically. The revolution created a new political identity. The country's relationship with many global powers became confrontational. New challenges appeared, but the historical pattern remained familiar. Iran faced pressure from stronger opponents. It adjusted. It survived. The Iran-Iraq War was one of the clearest examples. A powerful regional enemy attacked Iran. Many believed the conflict would end quickly. Instead, it continued for years. The war caused immense suffering, but it also strengthened the idea of national endurance. The ability to continue under extreme conditions became part of Iran's modern identity. After the war, Iran entered a period of rebuilding. The country faced economic problems and international restrictions, yet it continued developing. Universities expanded, scientific research grew, Industries adapted. The country attempted to become more self-reliant. Supporters viewed this as a sign of independence. Critics pointed to internal difficulties and political limitations. Like all complex historical stories, Iran's story contains different perspectives. But one fact remains clear. Iran repeatedly survived challenges that many expected would destroy it. This does not mean every opponent failed in every goal. History is more complicated. Some powers achieved victories. Some changed Iranian politics. Some gained influence. But the larger goal of permanently removing Iran as an independent civilization was rarely achieved. That is the deeper meaning of Iran's history. The country's survival was not accidental. It was built through centuries of adaptation. Iran learned from invasions. It learned from defeats. It learned from foreign influences. Each challenge became part of its historical experience. The greatest powers that confronted Iran often underestimated this. They saw the immediate situation. They did not always see the thousands of years behind it. A civilization cannot be judged only by its current difficulties. Its true strength is revealed by how it responds over time. Iran's history is the history of response. Again and again it faced powerful forces. Again and again it changed, and again it continued. The history of Iran reveals a civilization that survived not because it avoided crises, but because it developed the ability to overcome them. Every era brought new challenges, and every generation faced a different test. From ancient invasions to modern geopolitical conflicts, Iran repeatedly found itself confronting powerful forces. Yet the story never ended with disappearance. It continued with transformation. One of the greatest examples of transformation was the way Iran interacted with outside cultures. Many civilizations responded to foreign influence by either completely rejecting it or losing their identity. Iran often followed another path. It adopted new ideas while preserving its own foundations. This balance allowed Iran to remain connected to the world without losing itself. The ancient Persians borrowed technologies and ideas from neighboring civilizations. Later, Persian scholars contributed to the Islamic world. Persian artists influenced architecture across regions. Persian literature spread far beyond Iran. This exchange made Iran both a receiver and a creator of civilization. The strength of Iran was not only defensive, it was creative. A civilization that continues producing knowledge and culture remains alive. This is why cultural influence became one of Iran's greatest historical powers. Even when political control changed, Persian influence continued. The language of poetry, administration, and scholarship carried Iranian traditions across centuries. The works of Persian writers and thinkers became part of world heritage. This cultural legacy helped maintain a connection between ancient and modern Iran. Another important factor was the relationship between cities and civilization. Iranian cities were not only places of population, they were centers of administration, trade, education, and art. When political systems changed, cities often preserved continuity. New rulers needed these urban centers. They needed the knowledge and skills of the people living there. This gave Iranian society strength, even during periods of foreign rule. The pattern appeared repeatedly. A conquering power might destroy a dynasty, but it could not easily destroy the entire social structure. This was one reason Iran recovered after major invasions. The Mongol period is a powerful example. The destruction was enormous, but over time, Iranian cities and institutions recovered. The new rulers adapted to Iranian realities. Persian culture remained influential. The civilization survived. The same historical lesson appeared during the conflicts with European powers. The 19th century was a period of weakness for many traditional states. Industrial nations had major advantages. Iran faced military defeats and political pressure, but it maintained its independence. This was not a small achievement. The age of imperial expansion destroyed many independent states. Iran remained a recognized political entity. The 20th century brought even more complicated challenges. Global politics became connected to energy, ideology, and strategic competition. Iran became important not only because of its history, but because of its modern position. The Persian Gulf became one of the most important regions in global affairs. Iran's location gave it influence, but it also made it a target of competition. Many powerful nations wanted a role in Iran's future. However, Iran's own society also had its own goals. The desire for independence remained strong. This desire was shaped by centuries of experience. Historical memory influenced modern decisions. The idea that outside powers should not control Iran became a major theme. The revolution of 1979 was one of the most dramatic examples of this. It changed the country's political system and its relationship with the world. The aftermath created new tensions. Iran faced international isolation and conflict. But once again, it adapted. The country continued to function. It rebuilt after war. It developed new capabilities. It maintained its influence. This pattern of endurance became central to modern discussions about Iran. A country does not survive for thousands of years by accident. It survives because generations of people continue building on what came before. Iran's history is therefore not only about rulers and armies, it is about ordinary people, scholars, artists, merchants, and communities who preserved a civilization through changing times. The great powers that challenged Iran often focused on defeating the current government or controlling strategic resources. But Iran's deeper strength came from society itself. A civilization is not destroyed when one ruler falls. It is destroyed when its identity disappears. Iran's identity never disappeared. It changed. It evolved. But it remained. This is why the story of Iran continues to fascinate historians. It is not the story of an empire that simply expanded and collapsed. It is the story of a civilization that repeatedly faced the strongest forces of its time and continued moving forward. The history of Iran is one of the longest and most complex stories in human civilization. It is a story of empires rising, armies invading, rulers changing, and societies transforming. But above all, it is a story of continuity. For thousands of years, Iran stood at the center of world events. Ancient Persian kings created one of the greatest empires of the ancient world. Greek armies marched into Persian lands. Roman emperors fought for influence. Arab armies changed the political and religious landscape. Mongol forces destroyed cities. Ottoman rulers competed for power. Russian and British empires sought influence. Modern superpowers attempted to shape Iran's direction. Yet after every crisis, Iran remained. This does not mean Iran was never defeated. History is not a simple story of victory and defeat. Iran lost battles. Iran lost territories. Iran experienced internal conflicts, but the deeper civilization survived. That is the key to understanding Iran. The greatest powers often focused on the immediate moment. They saw a weakened ruler. They saw political instability. They saw military problems. But they sometimes failed to recognize the deeper foundation beneath the surface. Iran was built on thousands of years of culture. Its language carried memories. Its literature preserved ideas. Its cities protected knowledge. Its people maintained traditions. These became the foundations of survival. The ancient Persian empires left behind ideas about administration, diplomacy, and governance. Later, Iranian states continued developing these traditions. Even foreign conquerors often depended on Iranian systems to rule successfully. This created one of the most unusual patterns in history. Those who entered Iran often changed Iran, but Iran also changed them. The conqueror was not always the final influence. The civilization itself remained powerful. The story of Alexander showed this clearly. He defeated the Persian Empire, but Persian culture continued influencing the world he created. The Arabs conquered Persia, but Persian scholars and administrators became central to the Islamic world. The Mongols destroyed Iranian cities, but later Mongol rulers adopted Persian traditions. The Ottomans competed with Iran for centuries, but Iran remained separate. European powers pressured Iran, but they never completely absorbed it. Modern powers challenged Iran, but they faced the same historical reality. Iran could be pressured. Iran could be weakened. But Iran was extremely difficult to erase. The reason was identity. A nation's strongest defense is not always a weapon. Sometimes it is the connection between generations. Iranian civilization survived because each generation inherited something from the previous one. Stories, language, art, knowledge, memory. The modern world is different from the ancient world. Today, nations compete through technology, economics, diplomacy, and global influence. But the historical lesson remains. A civilization with deep roots can survive enormous challenges. Iran's story is not only about resisting foreign powers. It is about adaptation. It is about rebuilding after destruction. It is about continuing after change. The mountains, deserts, and cities of Iran witnessed thousands of years of history. They saw kings rise and fall. They saw armies arrive and leave. They saw civilizations change. But they also witnessed something else: the survival of a people and a culture. The great powers that challenged Iran often believed they were facing only a country. History showed they were facing something much older. They were facing a civilization. And civilizations built over thousands of years are not easily defeated. The final lesson of Iran's history is simple. Empires may disappear. Rulers may change. Borders may move. But a civilization that preserves its identity can endure the storms of history. Iran survived not because history was always kind to it. Iran survived because it learned how to continue.